Hey guys, tonight we tumble straight into a world where everything you know, your medicine, your phone, your snacks, your dentist, is gone. The year is 1348, give or take, somewhere in Europe. It smells like wet sheep and spoiled barley, and your shoes are just a rough idea made of leather scraps. But something's off tonight. There's shouting in the square, dogs howling, then silence, then a door slams, then footsteps, but not normal ones. Slow, dragging, wrong. Someone's breathing too close behind you, but when you turn around, they're not breathing at all. If this kind of sleepy storytelling is your thing, hit like and subscribe. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe if you change your mind. Also, let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Hope you're doing okay. All right, lie back, close your eyes. You're gonna need your strength. It's going to be a long, rotten night. You run. You don't think. You don't speak. Your body just moves. Down a narrow path, slick with pig droppings, past the blacksmith's, where his forge is still glowing, abandoned. Past the tavern door, which swings wide, creaking, empty tankards tipped on the threshold. You don't recognize the town like this. This isn't home anymore. This is something else. A trap, a test, a warning carved in real time. And you're woefully unprepared. Your tunic is too thin. You've got no weapon. You're wheezing like an old goat. And your only plan is run faster than the slowest person. Which, spoiler, is you. Here's your first historical fact. Medieval towns were not built for escape. Winding alleyways, dead ends, random gates. If you didn't already know your way, you weren't finding it now. You duck behind a cart. Hold your breath. Someone, something, shuffles past. Not quite walking. Not quite alive. You see a face through the slats. What's left of it? And you realize you know them. You bought onions from them. Last week. You think about the plague. It had hit the village before. Buboes, fever, sudden collapse. But they didn't get back up. This is new. You peek out again. The thing's gone. For now. But your breath fogs in the cool night. Your body shakes. Part fear. Part chill. You are very, very mortal in a world that has stopped obeying its own rules. Scholars still argue whether medieval people actually believed in the undead. There are records, yes, stories of revenants, corpses rising to torment the living, usually as punishment or unfinished business. But were they myths, or cautionary tales made just believable enough to make your spine tingle in the dark? Tonight, belief isn't the problem. Reality is. You try to remember what you know, what you've heard. Your grandmother once talked about a restless dead. She said that's why some corpses were buried with rocks in their mouths, to keep them from chewing through the world again. You thought she was being dramatic. Now, you're not so sure. Quirky tidbit. In some places, people buried bodies face down, just in case. So they dig deeper instead of up. Practical superstition, they'd say. But maybe they knew something. You crawl forward, feet numb. Every shadow could be someone turned. You pass a basket of apples spilled on the cobblestones. You're hungry, but your hands shake too much to pick one up. Besides, they're next to a slipper, a child's, still warm. You don't want to think about it. The wind picks up. Somewhere a church bell rings. Not the hour, but a warning. You're not the only one who's seen them, or lost someone. The panic is spreading faster than the infection. And you've made it exactly 7 minutes. You duck into a bakery. Empty. Still warm. Loaves cooling on a board. You tear into one. It's dry. Hard. You chew anyway. Because fear and hunger are neighbors now, and both have moved in without asking. You sit in the dark. Listen. The rules are breaking. The village is shifting. People scream in the distance. A pig runs by, followed by 3 children, followed by silence. Then one child comes back alone. You don't ask. You try to think like a survivor. Where to go? What to bring? But you've never needed to know that. Not here. Not in your lifetime. The only apocalypse you knew was a spiritual one. Heaven or hell, fire or light, the priest's voice like thunder promising both. But this isn't a parable. This is rot, rising. In a world where most people already lived one bad harvest from starvation, where superstition is currency, where your best healer still recommends leeches for fevers, where the only thing people fear more than death is what comes after. And now it's walking. You press yourself into the bakery's corner, shut your eyes. You hear footsteps again, not dragging, running. A man bursts in, sees you, starts to speak, then stops. His face changes. Not fear, not relief, something in between. The moment hangs like frost in the air, and then you both hear it. A slow, wet shuffle behind him. A sound that doesn't belong to breath or heartbeat or reason. You want to help, but you don't move. The man doesn't scream. He just sighs, like someone realizing the bill has finally come due, and runs again. Out the back. You stay where you are. You wouldn't last a day in this world, but you've made it through the first hour. For now. You wake up with your face pressed to a flour-dusted floor and the stale taste of crust still clinging to your tongue. Your back aches. Your arms tingle. Your mouth is dry. You think you slept for maybe an hour, or maybe you just passed out from the sheer weight of panic. Then your body reminds you of something simple, human, dangerous. You have a scratch, just a little one. You must have brushed a rough beam or caught your arm on a nail when you dove into the bakery. It stings a little. It's red. And immediately, your brain launches into spirals. Is this it? Is this how it starts? And the worst part? You don't know. No one knows. Because in the medieval world, medicine is a strange mix of herbs, leeches, and hopeful prayers. That's your historical fact. There were no antibiotics in the Middle Ages, no germ theory, no concept of viruses or bacteria. If you got sick, it was either the air, your sins, or an imbalance of humors, and none of those came with a cure. You look down at the scratch and wonder if you should cauterize it, bandage it, bite it off. You have none of those tools. You do, however, find a piece of cheese that's only mostly mold. So there's that. Your best shot might be not dying from infection before you even get bitten. But you've got bigger problems. The sun is rising, and with it, the town is starting to smell. Not just like smoke and dung and old onions, like usual. No. This is something deeper, fattier, wronger. The kind of stench that makes your stomach shrink. You step outside, careful. The village is quieter now. You see shapes in the distance, not moving like people, just lingering, swaying slightly, as if they forgot they were alive and didn't quite manage death either. And here's where things get worse. you're not immune to anything. In a modern zombie apocalypse, you'd have antibiotics, multivitamins, gauze, maybe even a hospital with IV fluids. Here, you're working with bread crusts, stale ale, and maybe a chunk of garlic someone believes wards off evil. Your body's not ready, not even close. You're malnourished, constantly low on calories. You haven't had clean drinking water in weeks. You drink ale instead like everyone else because the water gives you worms. Yes, really. That scratch on your arm? In 1348, that's enough to take you out. And here's the quirky bit. Some people in the Middle Ages thought illnesses came from invisible miasmas, foul air. So they carried pomanders, little balls of scented herbs, to sniff when they passed something rotten. You don't have one, but someone's left behind a pouch of dried lavender. You tie it to your belt. Can't hurt. Probably. You move through the town, carefully, slowly. You see bodies, not walking, yet. You see a woman on her knees, whispering prayers over a rosary, eyes shut tight even as something moves behind her. You don't stop to watch. There's a boy across the square with blood on his mouth. You freeze. Then he smiles. Just a little. It's Jam. He's shaking. You are too. You nod. He nods. Neither of you speaks. Because speaking too loud might attract them. You're learning fast in the worst possible way. The scratch throbs. Your head swims. You need water. Real water. Or food. Or sleep. Or none of those things. Maybe just safety. That would be new. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly feared infection the way we do now. Without knowledge of microbes, did they understand contagion? Some say yes. They saw patterns. Towns falling one by one, sick touching the well, then others getting sick. They might not have known why, but they understood dangerous proximity. You're starting to understand it too. You pass a home with the door marked in ash, a crooked X, or maybe a cross. You've seen it before. A death inside, or worse. You don't knock. You keep moving. You find a barrel of rainwater. It's muddy, but you drink too fast. It tastes like iron and leaf rot, but it's wet, and you don't care. Your lips crack from the effort. And then, behind you, a sound. Not a groan, not a growl, just a breath, dry and shallow. You turn, and it's the baker, or what used to be the baker. His apron's still on, his hands red, his head tilting like he's trying to remember your name. You take a step back. He takes one forward. This is not a conversation. You run. Not fast, not gracefully, but enough. The baker doesn't chase hard, just follows. Steady, relentless, like gravity with legs. You duck into an alley, cut through an old shed, leap over something that crunches. Don't look down. You slam a door behind you and lean into the dark. You are shaking. You are sweating. Your scratch stings. You don't know if you're infected. You don't know how fast it spreads. You don't know what counts as infection. You just know this. You wouldn't last a day in a medieval zombie apocalypse. And somehow you're already halfway through your first one. You've locked the door. Or, well, pushed a barrel in front of it. That's the best you can do. Medieval doors don't exactly come with deadbolts. It's just wood, old iron hinges, and hope. And outside, you can still hear him. The baker, scraping, shuffling, breathing without breath. The worst part is, He used to give you extra crusts when you helped sweep. He once joked that your ears stuck out like his son's. You remember laughing. That feels like 1,000 years ago now. Inside the shed, you squint through a thin slit of light. You're in someone's old workspace. Tools hang crooked on the wall. A rusted sickle, a mallet, some rope, a row of wooden pegs, a scythe. Your hand lingers on it. Because here's the uncomfortable historical fact. Real medieval folks didn't walk around with swords. You're not a knight. You're a villager. A muddy, sore-footed, hungry commoner with no noble training. And your best weapon is for cutting wheat. You lift the scythe. It's heavy, awkward. The blade's dull. You think about sharpening it, then realize you don't know how. You're not even sure which side is supposed to face out. Your arm still burns. That little scratch. Still red. Still angry looking. You have a fleeting hope. Maybe the undead disease skips small wounds. Maybe it needs a full bite. Maybe the baker just had indigestion. You cling to nonsense because it's quieter than the truth. You creep to a side window, squinting out. The square is changing. People aren't screaming anymore. They're either gone or too tired to scream. The dead are gathering. Not in a Hollywood way. Not sprinting. Not snarling. Just existing. Aimless, awful. Stumbling through lives they no longer remember. You see your schoolmate. A girl who once pulled your hair and dared you to jump the creek. She's got blood on her hands. Her mouth slack. She's dragging her doll behind her like it still matters. You want to believe she's alive, just hurt. You want to believe she'll wave, call your name, blink like she recognizes you. She doesn't. She walks into a wall and keeps walking. You step back from the window. You're still holding the scythe. You don't know why. It feels like something. You root through the shed, find a rag, wrap it around your scratch. Useless, probably, but symbolic. And if history teaches us anything, it's that symbols have power, even if they're made of rotting linen and fear. Here's a quirky tidbit for you. In some parts of medieval Europe, people believed that disease came from sin, so they whipped themselves in public as penance, hoping to cleanse the soul and body through pain. Flagellants, they were called. Bands of moaning, bleeding pilgrims marching town to town. You don't think that'll help right now. But you do start to understand the urge, the need to do something, anything, when the world feels so wildly out of your control. You crack open the door. The baker's gone. For now. You slip out. Everything feels louder. You're breathing. The gravel under your feet. The thump of your heartbeat, which sounds suspiciously like panic. The scythe drags behind you. You lift it higher. You pass the well. Ropes cut, buckets broken. Someone tried to block it. Or maybe someone came out of it. You don't stop to wonder. You turn a corner and nearly run straight into someone. Alive. You both freeze. He's older. Beard streaked with ash. He's holding a pitchfork, shaking slightly. You raise your hands. He doesn't lower his weapon. There's no trust anymore. Bitten, he rasps. You shake your head. Sure? You nod too fast. He stares at your arm, the wrapped cloth. His eyes narrow. Historians still argue whether medieval communities really had protocols for this sort of thing. Probably not for zombies, specifically. But for disease? Yes. Isolation, quarantine, burning of clothes, sometimes burning of people. Mercy wasn't always part of the equation. The man doesn't say anything, just nods once slowly and backs away. Not an invitation, A warning. You're on your own. You keep moving. Toward the edge of town, past the tanner's shop, where the smell of death now mingles seamlessly with the old, sour stink of leather. Past a pen of sheep, still bleeding, untouched. The undead don't want wool. The sun is higher now, too bright. Everything looks surreal, sharp and wrong. You find a path out of the village, just a dirt trail. No sign, no idea where it leads. But it's not here, and that's good enough. You take one last look behind you. The baker is there. Not close, but standing, watching, tilting his head again. Like maybe there's a part of him that still remembers you. Or maybe he's just reacting to movement. You'll never know. You turn and walk away. The scythe rests on your shoulder. The rag around your arm is soaked through now, with sweat maybe, or something worse. You still haven't survived a full day. But you've lasted another hour. And in a medieval zombie apocalypse. That's something. You make it to the tree line just as the sun starts to bake the path behind you, and your shadow stretches out like a second self, tired, lanky, swaying with every step. The forest is damp and unfamiliar, the kind of place kids are warned never to wander into alone. Witches live in here, supposedly. Wolves, too. Or worse, outlaws. But right now, you'll take wolves over zombies. There's a stream nearby. You hear it before you see it. A lazy trickle winding through mossy stones and fern-covered banks. You kneel beside it, cupping water in your hands, drinking too fast again. The taste is earthy, cold, real. For a few seconds, you feel like maybe you've made it. Maybe the worst is behind you. Then your arm twitches. The scratch, still red, still angry. Your body feels hot in some places, cold in others. Your head's heavy, like it's full of steam and secrets. You sit down hard on a root. Try to breathe slow. Try to think. But it's hard to think when your whole body is on high alert. Every twig crack sounds like footsteps. Every gust of wind smells like rot. Every shadow looks like the baker, or the girl with the doll, or your own reflection in the water, with eyes that aren't yours anymore. That's your historical fact. The medieval understanding of illness was deeply tied to the natural world. Forests, for example, were feared as places of chaos and disease. Too much moisture, too much shade. People believed illness could fester there, born from the bad air or unbalanced elements. And now here you are, sweating in the bad air, hiding in chaos. You try to calm your body, steady your breathing, but the scratch throbs harder, like it's reminding you, time is ticking. You start walking again, uphill toward higher ground. In stories, high places are safe. Towers, mountains, lofty things. But this is not a story. This is a medieval apocalypse, and the only towers nearby are either crumbling watchposts or abbeys. And one of those probably has monks who've already turned into choir-singing corpses. You pick up a stick, not because it's useful, just because you want something in your other hand, something to hold. Something to pretend is a plan. You crest a ridge and see smoke in the distance. Not black, not from fire. White smoke, cooking smoke, controlled, alive. There are people. You know you should stay hidden. But the smell? It's cabbage. Maybe onions. Maybe meat. You'd sell your soul for a boiled turnip right now. You creep forward. A small camp. 3 people, one elderly, sharpening a blade. One middle-aged, stirring a pot. One younger, watching the woods with a bow. You step out slowly, hands up. They don't panic. They don't scream. They don't invite you in either. The middle one speaks. Bitten? You sigh, say no. They ask to see. You shake your head. The archer says, then you're no good to us. And that's the quirky tidbit. In some historical plagues, people would mark homes with chalk or hang a rag outside if someone inside was sick. It was a signal. Stay back. But in a zombie plague, you are the chalk. You carry your contamination wherever you go. You plead. You say you can help. You can cook, sew, carry firewood, fetch water. The old one laughs. Everyone says that when they're hungry. They give you something, though. A crust of bread thrown like you're a stray dog. No one touches you. No one looks long. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly helped each other in crisis or only protected their own. Evidence suggests both. Some communities pulled together. Others turned savage. It wasn't about morals. It was about survival. And your face doesn't scream asset. It screams liability. You sleep under a tree that night. Nearby, but not close. You watch the campfire flicker. You pretend it's yours. You pretend you're warm. The scratch is darker now. You feel slower. Like your legs aren't quite listening. Like your thoughts are drifting. You try not to think about what that means. You remember something your grandmother used to say. When your soul leaves your feet, the rest follows soon after. You wiggle your toes just to prove her wrong. They still move, barely. You wonder what would have happened if this had started in the capital. Would the king survive? Would the lords flee? Would anyone care what happens to your muddy little village? You doubt it. A stick cracks behind you. You freeze. You don't move. You listen. A bird? A deer? No. Too deliberate. You grip your scythe. Your hands are slick. You're not strong, not fast, not ready. A shape moves between the trees, human-shaped, but wrong, stilted, twitching. You don't wait. You swing. It connects. Barely. The weight throws you off. You stumble. The shape lunges. You scream. But it's not a scream of fear. It's frustration. Because you've lasted this long. You've starved and shivered and begged and bled. You're not going down without a fight. The shape stumbles back, falls. You don't wait to see if it's finished. You run again. And as you flee, the pain in your arm surges. You know, deep down, you're not going to last much longer. But the sun is still up. And that means there's still time. The next morning doesn't feel like morning. It feels like the world forgot to reset. The birds don't sing. The mist clings too tightly to the ground, too stubborn to lift. And you're colder than you've ever been, but your skin is burning from the inside out. You wake up with a start, a breath caught in your chest. You look down at your arm. The scratch isn't red anymore. It's gray. Just a line of dull, lifeless skin that wasn't there yesterday. You wrap it again, tighter, but the cloth keeps slipping. Your fingers feel thick, clumsy, as if they've been dipped in honey and left to stiffen in the sun. You try to stand and nearly fall. Your legs don't like you anymore. You tell yourself you're just tired, that it's the fear, the hunger, the cold. But deep down, you know what's coming. Still, you move. Because not moving is death. That's your historical fact. In the Middle Ages, rest wasn't always a luxury. It was a risk. Sleeping too long, being idle too long, that meant starvation, suspicion, or sickness. Movement, even aimless movement, gave the illusion of purpose, and purpose could keep you alive. You head back to the path, away from the campfire you never got to sit beside. The archer is gone. The pot is empty. The three figures are walking in the other direction now, away from you. You don't call out. You wouldn't stop for you either. Your stomach cramps. Your mouth is dry. Even breathing hurts. But still you walk. Through the brush, past blackberry thickets, past the body of a deer, torn and half-eaten, its eyes wide open to the gray sky. And that's when you hear it. Voices. Not groaning, not dead. Actual voices. You crouch, moving slow, every joint protesting. Up ahead, a road, not much of one, just packed dirt and ruts from ox carts. But on it, a wagon, and around it, people. 10, maybe 12. You don't rush toward them. You've learned that much. You watch. It's a procession, a slow one, a family maybe, a few guards, a priest, 2 mules, and in the wagon, bodies, but not infected ones, wrapped ones, clean cloth, crosses. They're being taken somewhere for burial, or burning, or something in between. One of the guards looks up and sees you. He doesn't raise a weapon. Instead, he calls out, "You all right?" You nod. He squints. "You don't look all right." You say nothing. They let you approach, slowly, cautiously, like a dog with matted fur and an unknown bite history. The priest steps forward, offers you water, blesses you without asking. You let him. The words wash over you like fog. You sit by the wagon for a while. They ask your name. You lie. They ask if you're traveling alone. You nod. They don't press. That's the quirky tidbit. Medieval folk were weirdly good at leaving each other alone when it mattered. There wasn't time or energy for every stranger's story. Survival meant keeping your questions short and your expectations shorter. You walk with them for a while. They talk quietly. One man says the dead are rising in every village now. Another says it's punishment. For kings, for heretics, for gluttons. A woman clutches her baby tighter every time someone speaks. No one says the word zombie, of course. They call them blighted ones, or corrupted, or those who do not sleep. They don't ask what you think. Good. Because you don't trust your voice. It sounds different in your head now. Slower. Muffled. Like it's sinking beneath something thick and wet. They stop for a rest. You sit on a stump. Your head tilts. Your eyes blur. Someone says your name. The fake one. You look up. It takes effort. You've got the sickness, the guard says quietly. Don't you? You try to lie, but you don't. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly knew how to spot infection early. Some say they did, that there were signs, tells, patterns. Others argue it was all superstition, guesswork, and fear. But one thing was clear. Nobody liked waiting to find out. They don't attack you. They don't shout. They just step back. The priest murmurs a prayer. The woman with the baby averts her eyes. The guard who offered you water earlier says, "We'll give you a head start." And just like that, you're alone again. Because in this world, kindness has an expiration date. You walk, barely. You don't feel pain anymore. Your mouth is dry, but you're not thirsty. Your legs ache, but your feet float. You pass a tree with a rope still swinging from the branch, a hastily dug grave, a wheelbarrow half full of spoiled turnips. You laugh. You don't know why. Maybe because the wheelbarrow's been abandoned halfway up a hill. Someone tried to run with vegetables. That feels ridiculous. That feels human. You sit in the grass. Breathe in. Out. The sun is high. The wind is warm. You could sleep here. Forever, maybe. But you don't. You get up. Because even if the dead are coming, you're not ready to join them. Not yet. You lose track of how far you walk. The path twists through the hills like a half-forgotten story. And you, well, you are just the last stubborn word still hanging on at the end. Your feet scrape through gravel and damp moss. You pass through fog that tastes like ashes. Somewhere behind you, the priest's voice still lingers, like incense clinging to your skin. You've stopped bleeding, which would be good news if you didn't also stop feeling. Your fingers don't really bend right anymore. Your legs move, but you're not entirely sure it's you doing the moving. It's more like your body's borrowed itself out to someone else. You've become the world's saddest puppet. And yet, you're still here. And that's where the weird part comes in, because you realize, all at once, that there are no rules, no ticking clock, no magical deadline. You're not frothing or growling or gnashing your teeth. You're just walking with a fever and a bad feeling and no map. Historians still argue whether medieval people believed in slow transformations, whether someone could be not quite dead for days or even weeks. In folklore, it depends. Sometimes a person dies violently and rises at once. Other times the change is gradual, a soul that leaves in layers. You think maybe you're unraveling. But if you're honest, you were never stitched all that tight to begin with. Eventually, the path leads you to a clearing. You see a sign nailed to a post, warped from rain. St. Bodrick's Spring, Pilgrim's Welcome. The letters are uneven. A hand-dug trail cuts through the trees. You follow. Not because you're hopeful, but because everything else behind you is either burning, groaning, or getting very, very quiet. The spring is real. Tucked under a mossy outcrop, surrounded by crumbling stone icons and faded offerings, beads, bones, carved hearts, a boot. Someone even left a wheel of cheese, though it's more mold than dairy now. The water trickles clean from the rock. You kneel. You drink. Slowly this time. The cold climbs inside your mouth and makes you shiver. That's your historical fact. Pilgrimage sites like this, little forest shrines, holy wells, sacred groves, were common across medieval Europe. Some were officially sanctioned by the church. Others, more pagan in origin, kept alive through whispered tradition. People came here seeking miracles, healing, answers. You're not sure what you're seeking. Maybe you just want to feel human again. You wash your face. It feels foreign, puffy, stretched. Your skin doesn't bounce back when you press it. Your reflection in the spring is smudged. But what you see makes your stomach drop. Your eyes aren't quite the right color anymore. You lean back, breathing fast, but there's no air in your lungs. Not real air. Still, you don't leave. Because something inside you, whatever is left, knows this might be the last place that doesn't feel cursed. You spend the afternoon there, watching light shift through trees, listening to birds who don't know the world has ended. Or maybe they do, and they just don't care. A squirrel approaches, sniffs you, doesn't run. It should run. That's your quirky tidbit. Medieval people sometimes believed animals could sense death. Cats were feared as witches' companions. Dogs were said to howl when someone was about to die. But here, the squirrel seems to see you not as a warning, but as a stump, or a rock, something neutral. forgotten. That hurts in a strange way. You doze off against a tree, the scythe across your lap, your wrapped arm cool against your chest. And you dream of bread that isn't hard, of warm stew, of your mother's voice, of laughter around a fire. You dream of being clean, of teeth that don't ache, of legs that obey. And then you dream of the baker, standing over you, still wearing his apron. Only now he speaks. Not groans, not snarls. Words. Don't forget the dough. You wake up choking. The sky is turning orange. You slept too long. You stagger to your feet. Almost fall. Everything spins. You want to vomit, but there's nothing left in your stomach. You want to cry, but your body's saving its fluids. You want to stop, but the sound that rises next, that's not in your head. Footsteps. Many. Not careful ones. Crunching leaves, snapping twigs, wet, slapping movements. You back away from the spring. Too late. They're coming through the trees. Not fast, not slow, just moving. Like they know where you are. Like they always knew. 5, maybe 6. Faces collapsed inward. Teeth black with rot. One's wearing a chainmail shirt, arms bare and bitten. Another's barefoot, dragging a broken leg behind her like it's made of cloth. You don't think, you swing. The scythe connects. A clean, wet snap. One falls. But the others don't stop. You run. No path, no direction, just panic. You trip, get up, trip again. Something grabs your shirt, but it tears. You lose the scythe. Branches whip your face. Blood, yours, theirs, gets in your eyes. You break into a clearing. And there's a bell tower. Old, wooden, tilted. You bolt for it. The ladder creaks. You climb anyway. Half falling, half hauling yourself upward. You make it. Barely. You sit at the top gasping. Below the forest sways. The dead don't climb. Not yet. You brace yourself. You wait. You may not survive the night, but you've survived the spring, and that's something. You don't sleep that night. You sit in the bell tower, knees pulled to your chest, spine crooked against splintering wood. The stars blink above you, unbothered by the end of the world. They've seen worse. Below, the forest is alive with the dead. They shuffle. They groan. Occasionally, one reaches for the ladder and smacks it half-heartedly, like a toddler trying to knock down a bookshelf, but none of them climb. That's the only mercy. Your throat is dry. Your stomach's a hollow drum. Your limbs are numb. But your mind, that's the part still humming. You think about the scythe you lost, about the squirrel, about the man with the pitchfork, about the girl with the doll. You think about how you used to know what a day was. You don't anymore. Because when time is just a long, thin string of still alive, the clock stops mattering. Here's your historical fact. In the Middle Ages, people measured time not by hours, but by rituals. Bells ringing, prayers said, sunrises, market days. 7 hours past prime meant more than 2 p.m. Monasteries used bells to regulate everything from meals to sleep. And now you're in a bell tower, waiting for nothing but morning. The bell itself looms above you, cracked, unused. You think about ringing it, not to signal safety, but just to scream into the world, I'm still here. But that would bring them, the ones below. So instead you whisper, just to hear something. Your voice doesn't sound like yours. It's raspier, thinner. The scratch on your arm is numb now. No pain, no redness, just dead skin. Like something paused halfway through taking you. You prod at it. No reaction. You wonder if that's good or bad. You wonder if you'll become like them, slow, blank-eyed, stuck in a loop of pointless hunger, or if you'll just stop, collapse, fade out like a candle left too close to the window. Historians still argue whether medieval people thought the dead could think. Some believed in revenants, restless corpses brought back by unresolved emotions, or sin or curses. Others insisted they were just meat, soulless husks animated by the devil or disease. You're starting to believe it's both. At dawn, the fog rolls in, soft, silver, forgiving. The dead scatter back into the woods, like they're allergic to daylight. Or maybe they just wander like ghosts with bad balance. You climb down, legs trembling. You keep low, keep quiet, and then you spot it. A walled village. Stone perimeter, wooden watchtower, a flag barely moving, smoke rising. It looks alive. You move faster. The road winds down the hill. The mud sucks at your feet. Your lungs burn. But your heart, your stubborn, stupid, still human heart, drives you forward. When you get close enough, a voice calls out, "Halt!" A guard, crossbow aimed right at you. His helmet sits too low. His gloves are too big. He looks about 16. "State your name," he barks. You give him your fake one again. Any signs of plague? No. Bites? You hesitate. Show your arms. You unroll the cloth. Hold your breath. He squints. That's not fresh. You nod. Wait there. He disappears. The gate stays shut. Time passes. Then a creak. The door opens a crack. 2 more guards step out. Older. One has a spear. One has a thick book and ink-stained hands. The bookkeeper speaks. We're keeping a ledger for records. Of what? Who's entered? Who's left? Who's turned? You blink. Turned? He nods. People come in. People go out. We watch. Some of them don't stay themselves. He writes something. You can't see what. They wave you in. You enter the village. It smells like straw, garlic, and fear. Like life that's trying very hard to pretend it's not unraveling. Children peek out from behind barrels. An old woman sells cabbage soup. A butcher sharpens knives and doesn't look at you. You are taken to a corner house. Not locked in exactly, but watched. They bring food, bread, broth, water. You cry. Not loud, just a few tears, salt stinging down your face. It's the most human thing you've done in days. The quirky tidbit. In some medieval towns, refugees from plague zones had to wait outside for 40 days before they were allowed in. This is where we get the word quarantine, from the Italian 40 giorni, meaning 40 days. They didn't have tests, just time and observation. You're not in quarantine, not formally, but they're watching. And you're waiting. Every cough draws eyes. Every stumble makes someone flinch. You sleep in a hay bed, eat broth that tastes like survival. You dream of bells again, but this time they're ringing. Loud, fast, warning. You wake up to screaming and realize the gates didn't hold. Not this time. The screaming starts low, like someone whispering a nightmare into a well. Then it grows. A shout, then 2, then glass breaks. Then a bell, an actual bell, starts to ring in the center of the village. You're already on your feet when the door bursts open. One of the younger guards shouts, "They got through. Lock your doors. Find higher ground." And then he's gone. You look around the little room. No second floor, no window bars, just a cracked lantern, a half-eaten loaf of bread, and a broom that definitely isn't going to help. You run. Down the alley. Barefoot. The stones are cold. The air's filled with smoke and the kind of tension that tastes like metal in your mouth. People are shoving past you, dragging carts, kids, screaming names. You hear someone shouting for their dog, someone else praying, and someone, not far off, laughing. Loud and broken, like the panic has turned their brain sideways. You duck into a butcher shop. Empty. The counter is overturned. Blood streaks the walls. Pig's blood, probably. Hopefully. You hide under the table. Because what else are you supposed to do? Here's your historical fact. When medieval cities faced chaos, whether from invasion, plague, or fire, there weren't emergency services. No sirens. No trained crews. No calm voices on radios. The best you had was bells, neighbors, and your own ability to stay unnoticed. So you breathe through your mouth. You keep still. And you listen. Footsteps outside, fast ones, not shuffling. Then slower ones. Thicker, dragging. You peek through a crack in the boards. One of them. A corpse, still wearing a market apron, jaw hanging too low, eye missing, skin like wet parchment. It moves past you. You hold your breath until your lungs ache. Then, shouting, steel on bone. The guards are fighting back. People are fighting back. The dead don't scream when they're hit, but the living do. You know you have to move. You spot a side door, creep toward it, open it slow, and that's when you see her. The baby, just sitting there, wrapped in cloth, set down in a basket like someone meant to come back and didn't. She isn't crying, just blinking. You freeze. Because this isn't your problem. Because you're barely surviving. Because you're sick. But still, you pick her up. Because you can't not. That's your quirky tidbit. Medieval people didn't have a word for childhood the way we do now, but they still left traces of love. Tiny shoes, cradles carved with angels, lullabies scratched into parchment. For all their fear and chaos, they care deeply. Sometimes irrationally. You carry her. Back into the alley. Past the corner where two villagers are trying to push a cart in front of a door. One sees you, baby in arms, and nods. Not with approval, with understanding. You run. You see the church. It's tall, stone, the bell tower intact. It's your best bet. You push inside. The priest is there. 2 nuns, a family, a smith. The archer from days ago, blood on her sleeve. No one questions you, not with a baby in your arms. The priest bars the door. They've overrun the south gate. How? Someone asks. We don't know. And here's the scholarly debate. Some historians think plague outbreaks were purely organic. Rats, fleas, germs. But others suggest human behavior played a role. Pilgrims ignoring quarantines, traders bribing checkpoints, priests declaring towns saved too early. Maybe someone opened a gate to help a friend. Maybe the dead were already inside. You sit in a pew. The baby is asleep, or pretending to be. The archer sits beside you. She doesn't look surprised to see you alive. You were bitten. You nod. She studies your face. You've lasted longer than most. I feel strange. She shrugs. Everyone does. Then silence. Long, heavy. The priest starts praying aloud. You don't join in. You look up at the stained glass windows. Saints with swords. Angels with trumpets. Painted peace. You wonder if they're watching. You wonder what they see. Outside, the growling gets louder. You brace for the crash. But it doesn't come. Not yet. Instead, the baby stirs. Reaches up. Touches your cheek. Smiles. And for one fleeting second, you feel human again. The moment doesn't last. You hear it first. A sharp metallic clang, like a cart tipping over. Then another. Then a scream, low, guttural, not too far from the church doors. The archer stands. You follow. Everyone else holds still, like movement might summon death faster. The priest murmurs another prayer, but his hands tremble. You give the baby to the nun, whose face is carved out of resolve. She'll be safe with me, the nun whispers. You want to believe her. You want to believe anyone. You and the archer move to the door. She listens, mouth tense, bow in hand. Then, thump. Something just hit the other side. Again. And again. The third hit cracks the wood. There's no time to be delicate. You brace the handle. The archer signals you to move away, but you shake your head. You're not going to just stand by. Not now. Not with that baby behind you. Here's your historical fact. Medieval churches were often used as last resort fortresses, not because they were well defended, but because people believed sacred ground offered protection. Symbolic, not strategic. Thick stone, yes, but thin hope. The crash that comes next isn't symbolic. The door splinters inward, and they pour in. The dead. 3, 4, 5. And right behind them, another, too fast, who was a man an hour ago, still in a guard's tunic, eyes wild with fresh infection. The archer fires. Her arrow sinks into his neck. He falls gasping. But the others keep coming. You grab the nearest thing, a candelabra, swing hard. One of the dead collapses sideways, taking a hymnal with it. The nun screams. The priest swings incense. Someone throws a bench. Chaos. In the middle of it, the baby wails. A horrible, real, very alive sound that cuts through everything. And somehow, that freezes the room. For a breath, even the infected ones pause. You move. Grab the baby. The nun clings to your sleeve, her knuckles white. You pull her with you, up the spiral stairs behind the altar. The archer follows. One last arrow in her fist. No time to reload. The dead don't climb well, not fast, but the fast ones. They're learning. You reach the belfry, lock the trapdoor. Silence again. Just for now. You lay the baby down on a padded robe. Sit against the wall. Breathe. The archer says nothing for a while. Then, you're not turning. You blink at her. The others? By now they'd be gone. You want to feel relieved, but you're not. You don't feel safe. You don't feel saved. You feel strange. Your thoughts come slower, like they're drifting down through a thicker atmosphere. Your limbs still work, but they feel borrowed. You touch your neck. Pulse. Still there. Just quieter than it should be. Here's your quirky tidbit. There were rumors, some as late as the 1400s, that certain plague survivors weren't quite normal afterward. They were called the half-dead, pale, cold, quiet, sometimes feared, sometimes worshipped, sometimes burned. You stare out the belfry window. The village is on fire now. Smoke pours from thatched roofs. Bodies litter the square. But a few shapes are moving, fast and low, dragging wounded into shadow. Someone is still fighting. You realize this isn't the end. It's just the first collapse. Historians still argue whether entire towns vanished overnight in the plague years, or if those legends were exaggerations. But archaeological digs have found villages with no signs of violence, just silence, as if everyone walked away at once, or turned. Below you, the dead claw at the trapdoor, scraping, groaning, waiting. You sit beside the archer. She studies your hands. Feel anything? She asks. You nod. Everything. Good. The baby yawns. And you start to laugh. Not hard, not loud. Just a tired, cracked laugh that tastes like wood smoke and guilt. You realize something else too. The infection didn't stop. It changed. It's not a death sentence anymore. It's a transition. The baker wasn't hungry. He was curious. The girl with the doll wasn't chasing you. She was lost. They're not just monsters. They're leftovers, worn-out humans still stuck in the world like you. And maybe you're one of them now. Just not all the way. Not yet. You press your fingers to your arm. It's cool. Smooth. Gray as riverstone. You're changing. But you're not gone. Not yet. And while you're still here, you'll fight. Because you're the last piece of the village still thinking, still protecting, still dreaming. You curl around the baby, close your eyes, and listen to the trapdoor creak. You wake to silence. Not peace, just the quiet that follows a storm. The kind where everything's still standing, but different, tilted, like the world shifted slightly in its sleep and forgot to shift back. The trapdoor is intact. No more thumping, no groaning, just a faint breeze moving through the cracked wood slats of the belfry window. The baby is curled beside you, breathing steadily. The archer's asleep too, slumped against the bell's support beam, hand still wrapped around her last arrow like a charm against bad dreams. You stretch, stiffen. Your arm's colder than ever, but you can still move it. That counts for something. Down below, the village smolders. The fire didn't spread to the stone buildings, but most of the wooden homes are black husks now. The chapel roof is streaked with soot. From up here, it all looks like a miniature model. Tiny bodies, tiny carts, tiny collapsed dreams. You scan for movement. Nothing. Then, just as your eyes begin to gloss over from exhaustion, you see it. A man. Walking, limping, but upright, clean. Alive. He's waving a white cloth, heading toward the chapel. You tense. So does the archer. Awake now. One eye open, tracking him through the slats. Friend or bait? She murmurs. She's not wrong. You watch together in silence. He doesn't carry a weapon, just a satchel and a staff. He walks like someone who's seen too much to bother pretending anymore. When he reaches the chapel steps, he kneels, crosses himself, then looks up, right at the belfry. You freeze. Then you wave. He waves back. The archer exhales. If he was one of them, he wouldn't bother with manners. You descend first, slowly. The trapdoor groans, but doesn't give. The baby stirs, but the nun stays behind with her, arms out, eyes fierce. You whisper that it's all right. She doesn't lower her arms. Fair enough. Downstairs, the church is a mess of overturned pews and holy books soaked in ash. But there are no bodies, no blood. The man waits at the door. He's older than you expected. Beard down to his chest, skin like worn parchment, but his eyes, sharp, clear. "Good morning," he says softly, if such a thing still exists. You open your mouth, forget what to say, settle for, "How?" He smiles faintly. Because this isn't the first time the world's ended. He explains that he came from another village, north. One that was hit hard, but not broken. They fortified early, quarantined their sick, burned bridges, sent scouts. You're one of the scouts now, apparently. He saw the smoke yesterday. I thought there might still be people. You want to laugh, or cry, or both. There are, you say. Just fewer. He nods. No judgment, just fact. The archer joins you. She doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. The man introduces himself, Brother Thomas. A monk once, now a medic, a wanderer, a reluctant witness. He offers food, real food, dried meat, flatbread, water that tastes of herbs. You eat slowly. The archer doesn't trust it. You do anyway. That's your historical fact. Traveling healers and wandering monks were often the first to spread hope, or the first to bring more plague. Communities feared and welcomed them in equal measure. No one was ever neutral in a crisis. Thomas sets down his pack and pulls out a scroll. A map. Rough, smudged, marked with charcoal X's and hopeful circles. He points to a monastery in the mountains. We're gathering there, he says. The ones who are left, the ones who can still think. We don't know what it is, this curse, this sickness, but we've seen people resist it. He looks at your arm, your eyes. You're not turned, you're in between. You swallow hard. He continues. Some people change quickly, others change differently. You nod. He studies you. Do you feel like yourself? You pause. Yes, but it's like something's sleeping inside me. He doesn't flinch, just rolls up the map. You should come, both of you. The archer raises an eyebrow. What's the catch? We work together. We study. We survive. No weapons pointed at our heads. Only when someone needs reminding. That's your quirky tidbit. In times of plague, monasteries often became both sanctuaries and science labs. They preserved medical texts, tracked symptoms, even recorded strange cases of people who defied the odds. They also got things wrong. A lot. But they tried. Thomas promises to return tomorrow, says he'll camp nearby, gives you time to think. You walk back to the belfry, holding the baby, thinking of all the things you never thought you'd do. Face a horde of undead. Swing a candelabra like a knight. Sion, keep a baby alive when you couldn't even keep bread from molding. And now, choose hope? Historians still argue whether people in the Middle Ages truly believed the world would end in their time. Some did. Many didn't. But everyone agreed on one thing. When things fall apart, someone has to go looking for what comes next. You look down at your hand, still yours. Mostly. And for now. That's enough. You don't sleep that night either. Not because of fear, though sure that's there, but because for the first time in days, your mind is racing for a different reason. Possibility. Not safety, not peace. But something more dangerous than both. Hope. The baby gurgles in her sleep, one fist curled like she's still holding on to her dream. The nun hums to her, voice soft and worn. The archer sharpens her blade beside the shattered altar, methodical, silent, a lullaby of steel. You watch the stars through a crack in the stone, and when the first streak of light touches the chapel window, you decide you'll go. Not because you believe in Thomas, not really, but because standing still has become a kind of dying. You've seen what happens to people who stay put. The infection doesn't even need to kill you. It just waits until you forget why you're alive. By mid-morning, the chapel smells like broth and old wood. You share breakfast, barely a scrap, but it's warm and shared. That's the part that counts. You pack quickly. The archer doesn't ask where you're going. She just slings her bow over her shoulder and follows. You don't talk about the baby. But when you leave, the nun hands her to you with a nod that says more than words ever could. You'll protect her, she says. Like it's not a question. You carry her out the chapel doors, into the smoke and ash and broken buildings, and from there, north. Brother Thomas is waiting at the edge of the woods. No camp, no fire, just a stick in the ground where he's drawn a symbol. 2 circles intersecting. Protection, he explains. From the old days. Pagan, maybe. Or just an old habit. Not everything has to be true to help, he says. That's your historical fact. In the Middle Ages, people blended superstition and religion all the time. Saints shared shrines with forest spirits. Herbal cures sat beside relics. A horseshoe on the door and a cross on the wall. Belt and suspenders, just in case. The 3 of you move out before noon. You're slower than you were. The baby slows you more. But it's okay. The roads are quieter now, and you're not exactly in a rush to meet whatever waits up north. You pass a burned farmhouse, a well filled in with rocks, a sign nailed to a tree. Do not drink the river. The letters are crude, fresh. You step around a puddle that smells like rot and iron. A fox darts across your path. It stops, looks at you, doesn't run. The archer whispers, it's watching you. Why? Maybe it knows something you don't. You shake your head, but you keep walking. That's your quirky tidbit. In certain medieval tales, animals were omens. Crows meant death. Dogs foretold storms. But foxes were messengers. They showed up before miracles or massacres, depending on how well you'd lived. So, no pressure. You sleep that night in the hollow of a fallen tree. Thomas stands watch. The archer dreams with her eyes half open. You hold the baby close, listen to the wind shift through dead branches, and feel the stillness beneath your skin. You are not worse, but you're not better either. You're becoming. That's the only word for it. In the morning, you eat roots, drink rainwater caught in curled leaves. The baby drinks too. The archer smiles when she burps. A moment that feels almost normal, like the apocalypse paused for a blink. Then, a sound. Metal on stone. You freeze. Someone ahead. You climb the next hill carefully, crouched, low. What you see at the top makes your heart stall. Not a village, not a monastery. A wall. Massive, rough stone, iron gate, spiked beams. And above it, a banner. Not royal, not religious. Just black. With a symbol, a hand holding a chain. Thomas hisses through his teeth. Not them. Who? Rope Guild. You glance at the archer. Her face has gone hard. They're not a guild, she says. They're scavengers, thieves. They used to make rope. Now they make graves. You see figures patrolling the wall, armed, organized. You step back, but it's too late. An arrow slams into the dirt 2 feet from you. Move! The archer barks, grabbing the baby from your arms and shoving you downhill. You tumble, dirt in your mouth, the world spinning. Another arrow, a shout, someone chasing. You run. Thomas limps behind you, clutching the map. The archer darts ahead, baby pressed tight to her chest. You dive into the trees and vanish. Heart hammering, hand scraped, baby crying. And yet, you're alive. You don't stop until you're 3 hills over and 2 streams down. Then you collapse in the bracken, all of you. Nobody speaks. That's the scholarly debate. In chaos, who fills the power vacuum? Some say it's always warlords. Others say healers, or farmers, or cults. The truth? It's whoever's willing to take control first and makes others too scared to question. You stare at the sky. You can still feel the heat of that arrow in the dirt. You're not even safe from the living anymore, but you're still moving. And the mountains are closer now. Maybe, just maybe you'll make it. Whatever making it even means anymore. You don't talk about the rope guild for the rest of the day, but it's there. In the way Thomas keeps glancing over his shoulder, in the archer's white-knuckled grip on the bow she hasn't loosened in hours, in your stomach, which now feels like a lump of lead tucked beneath your ribs. The baby fusses more. She feels it too. Even the birds go quiet. The forest thickens as you climb. Pines replace twisted oaks. The ground crunches instead of squelching. And the air, finally, starts to smell clean again. Cold. Like mountain wind and moss. Like something too high up to be haunted. Still, no one says safe. Not out loud. You sleep in a cave that night. Not big, but dry. A ring of old ash says someone else used it before. Recently, Thomas starts a fire. Tiny. Hidden behind a pile of stones. He heats water with herbs and passes it to you in a cracked wooden cup. Tansy and horehound, he says, for fever, for grief. You sip it. It tastes like lawn clippings and regret. Your historical fact: medieval herbal medicine was often passed down orally, especially by women. Recipes weren't always written, and when they were, they could be vague or symbolic. A handful of the moon's flower. Boil until the crying stops. Guesswork and hope, wrapped in bark and steam. The baby settles quickly. The archer, not so much. She sleeps light, dagger drawn, one eye cracked open. Thomas hums an old tune, something wordless, rising and falling like breath. You drift off to the rhythm of his voice, the baby's tiny sighs, and the endless murmur of trees. When you wake, there's snow on the ground. Not deep, just a dusting, but it makes everything quieter, cleaner, like someone swept the world and left only the parts worth keeping. You walk in single file. The baby's bundled tight. You carry her under your cloak, heart to heart. The trail narrows, and that's when you find them. A group of travelers, dead. Not undead, just dead, froze where they fell. 6 people curled against a boulder, one still holding a piece of flatbread, a child with frost on her lashes. You don't speak. Thomas kneels, says a prayer in Latin, then closes each of their eyes. The archer turns away, wipes her face when she thinks no one's looking. You stand still, trying to feel something other than tired. Why didn't they turn, you ask? No bites. Thomas murmurs. No sickness. Just cold, and lost. The quirky tidbit: many medieval mountain routes were so treacherous they were called death roads. Travelers often left offerings, coins, bread, feathers, hoping to curry favor with unseen spirits. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. You leave a coin on the boulder, one of the ones from the village that no longer exists, and you walk on. Because if you stop here, you might not get back up. Midday, you spot a trail marker, a real one, carved into stone. A cross, a star, and the faint outline of a bell. The monastery is near. But so is the wind, picking up, carrying the kind of chill that chews through wool. You climb another ridge, and there it is. High on the mountain shoulder, walled, weather-worn, but intact. Stone towers, a gate, and smoke, gentle, gray, curling from a chimney. The monastery. You freeze. Because it's beautiful. Not grand, not glittering, just real, a promise. And also, not empty. A figure stands at the gate, cloaked, armed, watching you. Thomas raises a hand, steps forward. The figure raises a crossbow. State your names. Thomas answers, calmly, confidently. Brother Thomas, I return with survivors. A pause. Then the voice, proof? Thomas looks to you. You step forward, pull back your sleeve. The scar is worse now, the skin pale, cold, almost waxy. The guard stares, then lowers the crossbow. Open the gate, she shouts behind her. Chains clank, wood creaks, and the gate yawns open. Inside, light, smoke, movement, people. You step through, and for the first time in days, you let yourself breathe. Historians still argue whether medieval monasteries truly acted as safe havens during plague years, or whether they simply lasted longer because they were isolated, self-sufficient, and strict. But some did survive, and some did help. You're inside now. The gate shuts behind you, and for once, you don't feel trapped. You feel found. The monastery doesn't look like salvation. It looks like stone that's forgotten how to be warm. The courtyard is bare. No flowers, no color, just packed earth, footprints, and ash. A line of laundry flaps in the wind, stiff and salt-stained. Cloaked figures move briskly between doorways, silent but not panicked. Everything about this place says order, survival, no time for fear. The baby squirms against your chest. You whisper a promise. You don't know what kind yet. A monk approaches, younger than Thomas, but with a face like he skipped laughing at childhood entirely. His robe is mended at the seams with different cloths, stitched tight and proud. A survivor's patchwork. Thomas bows. The young monk nods. We'll test them, he says. You tense. He sees it. Adds. We don't harm. We observe. The archer scoffs. You won't like what you find in me. He smiles, almost. You're not the first to say that. He leads you inside, through a narrow hall, past a door etched with sun symbols, into a chamber lit by candles and dried herbs. A woman waits. Not a nun, but she wears white. Her hands are stained with ink. Her eyes scan you like a page she's memorized before. I'm Sister Anselma, she says. I keep the records. I ask the questions. And I decide if you're worth trusting. You resist the urge to ask if they're worth trusting. You're too tired. The archer stands behind you like a statue. Thomas leans against the wall, unreadable. Anselma lifts your wrist, studies the scar. How long since the wound? 6, maybe 7 days. Symptoms? Tired, cold, but I'm still me. She raises your eyelid, examines your pupils, smells your breath. Then she does something unexpected. She presses her forehead to yours, gently, eyes closed. You freeze. Then warmth, human contact, not cautious, not medical, just real. She pulls back, nods once. You've resisted, that's rare. The archer says nothing. Thomas says less. Anselma turns to a wooden box, pulls out a shard of bone, flat, carved with lines. Do you dream of bells? She asks suddenly. You blink. Yes. She nods again. Most of the resistors do. She doesn't explain, just makes a mark on her ledger. That's your historical fact. Monks in the later Middle Ages kept detailed plague chronicles, not just names and deaths, but symptoms, dreams, visions. Some even included drawings of plague angels or sickness beasts. No one really understood the disease, but they documented it, frantically, faithfully. Anselma asks about the baby. You explain. She listens. Then she lifts the baby gently, presses her ear to the tiny chest, smiles. Healthy. A miracle. She points to the archer next. And you? No infection, the archer says. Just trust issues. Anselma chuckles. We treat both. You're given a cell, not locked, not isolated, but small. With blankets, a fire, bread, a place to rest without looking over your shoulder. You collapse and sleep like the dead, but you wake like the living, because the next day begins not with screams, but bells, real ones, ringing from the tower, not alarms, ritual. The day's begun. Monks move through the halls in silent prayer. Herbalists carry trays of bark and vinegar. Children, actual children, play near the garden, watched carefully. And in the square? A board, nailed with names. Some scratched out, some circled, some newly added. Yours is there. So is the baby's. Not under-infected, not under-lost, under observation. Thomas walks beside you, carrying a scroll. This place isn't a sanctuary, he says. It's a test, a question. What question? What we become next. He nods toward the outer wall, where two people are training with spears. Neither looks strong, but both look determined. The archer joins them. Without a word. She fights like someone who doesn't want to be forgiven, just remembered. You help in the garden. The baby watches bees chase each other between late flowers. A woman shows you how to boil rose hips and mash roots. Everything's reusable. Nothing is wasted. Here's your quirky tidbit. In some medieval convents, gardens were designed as healing labyrinths, both physical and spiritual. The layout forced the walker to slow down, reflect, and breathe. Healing wasn't just about the body. It was about balance. You catch Anselma watching you again. You wave. She doesn't wave back, just writes something in her book. You're not offended. Curiosity is safer than indifference. At night, you sit with Thomas in the chapel. He tells you about the first days of the plague. The ones who tried to fix it, the ones who ran, the ones who turned, and how some resisted, not out of strength, but out of connection. They stayed themselves because they still had something to hold on to, he says. Love, faith, rage. Doesn't matter. What matters is something in them was louder than the hunger. You ask him what he held on to. He touches a pendant around his neck. It's not a cross. just a small carved shape, a bell. It rang once, he says softly. I want to hear it again. Historians still argue whether some medieval communities actually thrived during the plague, learning to cooperate, innovate, care for each other in new ways, or whether those are just hopeful fictions written later to soothe the sting of loss. But standing in the courtyard, watching the archer teach a boy how to notch an arrow, watching the baby reach for your chin and giggle, watching Thomas smile with the memory of sound, you think maybe those stories weren't fiction. Maybe they were blueprints. Maybe you're building one now. Yeah. The days stretch, but the fear doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. Now it walks the halls quieter, softer, more like memory than monster. But you still flinch at sudden footsteps, still wake at odd hours with your heart pounding and your hand on a blade that's not there. The monastery teaches you its rhythm. Morning bells, communal meals, training, prayer, study, sleep, repeat. You find strange comfort in it, like the apocalypse has a schedule now, like the end of the world has been politely asked to wait until after supper. The archer doesn't stay in the dormitories. She prefers the roof. I like to see what's coming, she says. You don't argue. The baby thrives. Her eyes are sharper now, tracking faces in firelight. Someone knits her a little hat. It's blue, uneven, made from 3 different yarns. You cry when you see it and pretend you didn't. Thomas studies your arm daily. The gray has stopped spreading. Your temperature fluctuates, but your thoughts stay yours. Sister Anselma brings you into the scriptorium one afternoon. You expect questions. Instead, she hands you a book. No title, just a blank page. Write what you remember, she says. If the worst happens, someone should know who you were. That's your historical fact. During plagues, many monasteries created mortality rolls. Long lists, not just of the dead, but their stories, trades, quirks. Some monks wrote full pages for certain people, while others were summed up with chilling brevity. He sang. He coughed. He died. You hesitate, then write. Your name, your town, the first scream, the broken fence, the bread you didn't finish, the candelabra, the baby, the moment you knew you weren't fully dead. You leave that last part vague. You're not sure what you'd call it anyway. That night, there's a council. Not a dramatic one, just a circle of people around a fire. No torches, no robes, just conversation. They're planning. The rope guild's expanding, someone says. Took over 2 more villages. South Road's unsafe. A woman stands. We should move the children higher up. Hide the stores. Thomas nods. We'll need new scouts, runners, quiet ones. All eyes shift to you. You blink. Me. You blend. Anselma says. The archer smirks. And you don't complain. Much. You look at the baby in your lap. She's chewing on her fingers. Content. I don't want to leave her. You wouldn't, Thomas says. We move in teams. You exhale. Then yeah. Okay. That's your quirky tidbit. Some plague-era convents secretly trained messengers, girls and women, who could move undetected between towns, carrying letters, herbs, news. They wore ordinary clothes, learned to listen before speaking. Some even posed as ghosts to scare bandits off. Your training begins the next day. The archer teaches you hand signals, foot placement, how to walk without snapping twigs. Thomas shows you old maps, faded routes that predate the plague. And Anselma. She teaches you how to lie. Not with your words, she says, with your stillness. She makes you sit in silence for hours, with her staring, waiting, watching. When you flinch, she says, start over. You hate it. And you learn. 1 week in, you make your first run. North Ridge, abandoned village. Goal, find herbs, food, any sign of survivors. You travel with a boy named Leontius, not much older than you. Pale, freckled, quiet. He carries a sling and a satchel full of dried fruit. On the trail, he hums under his breath little songs. You don't recognize them. You scared? He asks. You nod. Good. That means you'll stay sharp. The village is empty, but not untouched. Shutters hang loose. Doors are marked. One roof collapsed under snow. You find a storehouse half buried in drift. Inside, beans, dried meat, 3 jars of something sour. You load up. Then, movement. Not close, just a shadow. You freeze. Leontius signs, wait. You wait. Then you both hear it. A child's voice. Not crying. Laughing. Your blood turns to ice. Because that's worse. You creep forward toward the inn. Inside you see her. A girl. Alone. No more than 6. Spinning in circles, humming to herself, surrounded by bones. Not just any bones. Arranged. Like dolls at a tea party. She looks up, smiles. Do you want to play? You don't answer. Leontius pulls you back. She's turned. He whispers, but it's different. The girl skips to the doorway, stops, tilts her head. I like your scarf, she says. Then she shuts the door. Just like that. You run. All the way back. No one speaks on the return trip. Historians still argue whether some survivors, especially children, adapted to the plague differently. Not immune. Not infected. Just changed. Mentally. Behaviorally. Some were said to live in dreams. Others to predict deaths. Most were feared. Some were worshipped. Back at the monastery, you report what you saw. Anselma makes a mark in her book. Thomas says, we'll watch that place. And the archer. She listens, then hands you a better knife. You sleep that night curled around the baby. Heart pounding, wondering what else this world will ask you to become. And who you'll be when you say yes. You're not sure when it happens. The shift. That subtle tilt in your spine, in your breathing, in the way your footsteps no longer echo with hesitation. But one day you look down at your hands, smeared with ash and soil and something unidentifiable, and realize they've stopped shaking. You've stopped waiting to be saved. You've become someone who survives. Not by accident, by choice. Today's mission is different. Not a scavenger run. A message. Leontius hands you a pouch sealed with wax. They've got allies in the West, he says. Real ones. Healers. Builders. They think we're a myth. Your job is to prove we're not. Me. You're the only one who still looks soft enough to seem non-threatening. You snort. Thanks. He grins. It's a compliment. Your death with a friendly face. The archer joins you at the gate. No cloak today. Just armor made from stitched leather and old books. Yes, books. Pages folded and lacquered. Stops knives better than linen. She says, you believe her. You don't ask why she's coming. She's never needed a reason. You leave at dawn. The mountains fall behind. The wind shifts warmer. The trees here are thinner, taller, whispering secrets in a language that makes you uneasy. By midday, you find the road. Not a path, a road. Stone, cracked but still laid with intent. Roman, maybe, or just very old. A signpost leans into the wind. The letters are half eaten by moss. Corvus Hold, the archer says. Used to be a trade town. Last I heard, the rope guild torched it. You walk faster. By evening, you reach the ruins. They're not cold. They're burned. Charcoal frames, blackened stone, metal twisted by heat. The air still smells like old smoke. But also, life. Voices. Low. Careful. From beneath the ground. The archer signals stop. You crouch. Then, movement. A hatch opens behind a collapsed cart. A boy climbs out, skinny, dusty, carrying a crossbow twice his size. He doesn't see you yet. You throw a pebble. He spins. Too slow. The archer has her arrow drawn before he even spots you. Easy, you whisper. We're not here to fight. He squints. You're from the mountain? You nod. He whistles once. More hatches open. 6 people emerge. Eyes wary, clothes mismatched, but standing. One of them, a woman with a long braid and a hammer at her hip, steps forward. You're from Thomas? You nod again. Hand over the pouch. She breaks the seal. Reads. Then exhales. So it's true. You spend the night underground. Their bunker used to be a wine cellar, reinforced with barrels and library shelves. Candles drip onto old tax records. Someone roasts roots over a tiny flame. We've got 40 people, the woman says. 12 can fight, 8 are sick. The rest, wait. You ask if they've seen the Turned lately. She nods. 3 days ago, a group, 6 bodies, one dragging a bishop's staff. And here's your historical fact. Even in the darkest times, people gave symbols power. A bishop's staff wasn't just a stick. It was supposed to represent authority, divine right, protection. And when the dead carried one, it meant something. It meant the old world had surrendered. You sleep on stacked books, the baby beside you, the archer at the door. You dream of the girl in the inn. Not dead, not alive, just spinning. In the morning, you show them the map. The archer lays out the trail. You say the thing no one wants to say. If we move fast, we can get half of you out. And the rest? You don't answer. But you already know. They do too. You spend the day packing, smearing ash on skin, sharpening nails into points, disguises, traps, distractions. You leave at dusk. Because monsters hunt in the dark, yes, but so do you. You take the children first. The sick, the elders, quiet as ghosts. The archer and you run flanks, watching, listening. Nothing yet. But the forest feels wrong. Too quiet. Halfway up the ridge, you hear it. A branch snapping. Then another. A low hum, like growling, but lower. Older. Not from throats. From chests. From lungs that forgot how to be lungs. You don't see them yet. But they're there. The archer grabs your arm. Go. What? No. Go. And just like that, she vanishes. Arrow drawn, into the trees. Thomas said people survive by connection, but they also survive by sacrifice. You run, holding the baby, holding the map, holding everything that still matters. Behind you, silence. Then a single cry. Not pain. A war cry. the archer's voice echoing through the woods like a bell. Then nothing. Not even wind. You don't stop. You don't look back. You lead the refugees through the old pass. The gate looms ahead. And then you're home. Or what is home now? Not bricks, not blood. A choice. To keep moving forward, even when it costs you everything. Historians still argue whether people in plagues felt they were living through the end or building a beginning. Most likely they didn't know. They just chose. Every day. Again and again. So do you. The gates shut behind you with a sound like finality. Wood, iron, sweat. The kind of sound that means you're not going back. They lower the bar, post extra watch. You feel it ripple through the monastery. The tension, the weight, the realization that you've brought back more than just survivors. You've brought the war with you. Thomas meets you at the inner courtyard. He doesn't ask who didn't return. He sees it on your face. Just places a hand on your shoulder and says, "We'll remember her." You nod. You don't trust your voice yet. The baby clutches your scarf like a lifeline. You carry her to the dormitories where the younger children are already being tucked into beds of hay and quilts. You sit with her until she sleeps, hand on her back, eyes fixed on the ceiling. You don't sleep. You plan. The next morning, everything changes. It's no longer about surviving. It's about fortifying. A dozen more people to feed, but also more hands. More ideas. A woman from Corvushold knows how to reinforce doors with pulleys and hooks. A teenage boy used to be an apprentice bellmaker. He rigs the towers with alarms that ring with broken silverware. And you? You're assigned to scouting again, but this time, not to find help. To find them. The Rope Guild. Their movement, their signals, their scouts. You travel light, face smeared with ash, dagger tucked against your thigh. Leontius joins you, his sling tighter now, faster. He rarely speaks, but he whistles sometimes, low, soft tunes that seem to hang between the trees like warnings. 2 days into the woods, you find it. A cart. Broken, drag marks. Ash smeared into symbols, 3 knots in a circle. They're close. Leontius says. You nod. But you don't return yet. You follow. Half a day behind them. Close enough to smell their fires. Far enough to avoid their blades. Until you find their camp. It's bigger than expected. Fortified. Trenches. Watchtowers made from tree limbs. Ropes strung between trees like spider webs. Traps. At the center, a cage. And inside, something not entirely human anymore. A turned. Alive, chained, still moving. Being studied. That's your historical fact. In parts of Eastern Europe, legends told of moroi, restless dead kept in barns or cellars, chained and watched to see if they truly died. Some claimed the living could harvest power from the undead. Others said it was just cruelty, dressed as curiosity. You stare at the creature in the cage. It doesn't scream, doesn't speak, just watches. You sketch everything, in your head, on bark. You and Leontius don't need parchment anymore. You carry the map in your muscles now. Then you run. Straight back. No stopping. Back to the monastery. Past the trees. Over the stream. Through the pass. Back to Thomas. They're not hiding, you say. They're organizing. You tell him about the cage. He goes still. They're testing the infection, he says. For what? Control? Immunity? Maybe just power. You don't like the way he says that last word, like it tastes familiar. The monastery calls another council. They vote, not on whether to fight, but when. The answer is soon. You begin drills. Everyone trains, even the children, even Anselma. You learn how to load a crossbow, how to bind wounds, how to swing a spade with enough force to knock a helmet loose. And at night, you still write, in the journal she gave you, not just your story, but hers. The archer, the one who watched the edges, who never asked for thanks, who disappeared with fire in her hands. You write her name so you won't forget how it sounds. You write what she said the last night when you joked about death with a friendly face. She smiled, you write, but didn't correct me, because she knew what you were becoming and didn't stop it. That's your quirky tidbit. In some parts of plague-struck Europe, people believed those who resisted the sickness were marked not by holiness, but by hunger, a spiritual appetite, a need to finish something. It made them useful and dangerous. The baby takes her first steps 2 days later, stumbling between you and Thomas, clapping. She laughs when she falls, and you weep again. Not from grief this time, from disbelief. That something still begins in all this ending. Historians still argue whether babies born during plagues carried something new, an inherited resilience, a future unfrozen by fear. The records are spotty, the truth uncertain, but you believe it because you see it in her, because she looks at the world like it owes her something sweet. And for her, you'll take it back. All of it. Nee. You wake before the bells. Not to screams, not to footsteps, to stillness. That odd, eerie hush that only comes when the world itself is holding its breath. The baby's already awake, sitting up, watching the window like she knows. Outside, clouds hang low. The mountain wears mist like armor. And at the far end of the pass, something moves. Not animals. Not weather. People. Too many for it to be a wandering group of survivors. Too orderly. You sound the bell. Not the alarm, the signal. A steady, slow toll. Thomas is on the wall before the third ring. Leontius beside him, jaw clenched. You climb the watchtower. There they are. The rope guild. Dozens. No torches, no shouting, just movement. Like ants, purposeful. Their clothes aren't rags anymore. They wear leather, iron, pieces of old armor scavenged from dead knights and melted farm tools, painted with symbols, knots, spirals, ropes around open mouths. Some carry crossbows, others carry nets. And one, at the center, rides a horse. You haven't seen a horse in weeks, maybe months. That man is different, taller, cleaner, gloved. He's not just a survivor, he's a leader. The monks shut the gates, barricade the entrances. You help carry the boiling oil to the parapets. You light the signal fires. You whisper to the baby that it's just noise, just another loud day. She watches solemn, doesn't cry. You don't know what that means. The rope guild doesn't attack that day. They wait. Camp outside the range of arrows. Watching. You wonder if they're waiting for night. Thomas thinks they're testing your nerves. You think they'll leave? You ask? He shakes his head. Not without something to take. Or someone. You try not to imagine which. That's your historical fact. Siege warfare in the Middle Ages wasn't always about battering down walls. Often, it was a game of patience. Cut off supplies. Let fear rot the inside faster than any sword. The best war was the one you never had to fight. That night you don't sleep. No one does. The baby sleeps though, curled under your cloak like a seed. In the quiet hours, Anselma joins you on the wall. She hands you a small vial. If they breach, give her this, she says. You stare. It'll make her sleep through the noise, that's all. You nod, but your fingers tremble. The first attack comes at dawn. Fast, loud, distracting. 3 men charge the gate with torches. They don't even try to survive, just to test you. You shoot one in the leg. Leontius hits another in the eye. The third lights himself on fire and throws himself at the wall. He doesn't make it halfway. But the smoke, it sticks. And under the cover of it, more movement. From the trees. They knew you'd watch the gate. But you knew they'd try a side. Thomas is there already. So are you. This is what you trained for. Axes, stones, knives, books on fire. They breached the wall once. Just once. But once is enough. Because what comes through isn't alive. It's the chained creature. The one you saw in the cage. Released. It shouldn't move like that. It shouldn't know where to go. But it does. Straight for the chapel. Straight for the baby. You run faster than thought. Through smoke, through screams, through blood. You reach the door before it does. You slam it shut. Bar it. Then turn. It's not human anymore. Not even close. But it recognizes you. Tilts its head. Leans close. And whispers. I remember your fear. That's your quirky tidbit. In some plague folklore, the infected dead could speak, but only to the ones who would soon join them. Warnings, mockery, or just names. No one could agree. The records are inconsistent. The terror is not. You hold your knife out, but your hands shake. The baby cries, and the creature turns toward her. You scream, not words, just sound. And behind you, another scream answers. The baby? No. The creature. It screams, like something cracked in its chest. Like something long buried woke up and said, no. And then it collapses. Gone. Not dead. Just done. Thomas bursts in seconds later. Finds you on the floor. Holding the baby. Crying? He says nothing. Just takes your hand. The attack ends before noon. The rope guild retreats. Not defeated, interrupted. But it's enough. You won. This time. Historians still argue whether Plague-era attacks were truly random, desperate bands lashing out, or coordinated raids by those using chaos as cover. The line between survival and cruelty blurred fast. Some say it still is. But today, the line held. Because you held it. Because you chose to. After the smoke clears, the silence feels suspicious. You keep expecting the worst. A second wave. A trick. Something creeping from the trees, like it forgot it was supposed to be scary. But nothing comes. Just wind. And firewood cracking in the hearth, and the sound of the baby snoring softly into the crook of your arm. You sit on the chapel steps and look at the sky. It's blue. You didn't think it could still be blue. Inside, the monastery becomes a hospital. Everyone's treating wounds, rebuilding barriers, reinforcing the side wall. The archer's name is spoken like a prayer, not just because of what she did, but how she did it. Alone, unflinching, unseen. They found her bow among the trees. No body, just the bow, wrapped in rope, left like a message. Thomas burns the rope and hangs the bow over the chapel door. She wouldn't want a statue, he says. She'd want a warning. The baby has a fever for 2 days. You barely eat, barely breathe. You stay by her side while Anselma brings cloths soaked in vinegar and thyme. She doesn't say much, just hums. A lullaby. Old. Crooked. Safe. The fever breaks. And you remember how to sleep again. Here's your historical fact. Post-siege recovery in medieval communities often focused not just on fortifying walls, but rituals. Ceremonies of thanks, mourning, cleansing. Some burned their clothes. Some painted doors. Some rang bells until the sound made their hands bleed. You don't hold a ceremony, but you do ring the bell. 3 times. Slow. The sound echoes down the mountain. A message, not a prayer. We're still here. Others come. Not many, not in droves, but enough. A girl from the coast who used to be a fisher. A man with a prosthetic leg and a bag of stolen maps. A pair of sisters who speak only in gestures. They arrive one by one, drawn by the firelight, the food, the order. You learn their names. Add them to Anselma's book. She lets you write now. Your handwriting's a mess, but you're getting better. You even sketch. Faces, places, the archer's bow, the creature from the cage. You draw it not as a monster, but as a question. Because that's the scholarly debate now. Are these things remnants of the old world? Or are they something new, something evolving? Some survivors say the turned are getting smarter. Others say that's just fear talking. But either way, you stay vigilant. You practice. Daily. Not just fighting, but watching. Reading signs, weather, wind, footprints, language. The rope guild isn't gone. They're just waiting. You can feel it. Thomas trains a new scout unit. You're one of the instructors now. It's weird. Teaching people how to move, hide, listen. You sound like her sometimes. The archer. You hope that's okay. Leontius becomes the lead cartographer. He adds paths to the master map every week. When he finds a broken bridge, he draws it anyway, then writes, "Not yet," beside it. He says that means something. That's your quirky tidbit. Some medieval pilgrims used to walk the same paths every year, not because they had to, but to keep them open. They believed the road disappeared if it wasn't remembered, so they walked it, even if no one else did. You start to understand that. The world's not ending anymore. It's just changing. One night, you sit by the fire with Thomas. He's older now. You can see it, not in his posture, but in the way he waits before speaking. Like every word is measured against what it costs. "You know," he says, "we still don't know why you survived the bite." You nod. "I have theories," he says. "Immunity, resilience, maybe divine stubbornness." You smile. "Or maybe I'm just too tired to turn." He laughs, then grows quiet. "You need to lead," he says. You blink. "I'm not." You already are. He's not trying to convince you. He's just saying what's true. And you can't deny it. Not after all this. Not after everything you've seen. Carried, buried. You tell him you'll think about it. But you know your answer. Historians still argue whether true leaders in crisis are chosen or simply left standing. But in every record, one truth remains. Those who led didn't just survive, they remembered, and made sure others did too. You stay up that night writing your story, her story, the monastery, the baby. Every page inked like a promise, not to be perfect, but to persist. You wake before the baby. That alone is unsettling. She usually stirs at dawn, a soft kick or whimper, the rustle of wool as she reaches for your face in the dark. But this morning the silence is unbroken, not tense, just deep. The kind of silence that follows long work, real rest. You watch her sleep for a moment, tiny hand clutched around your thumb. She's drooling on her scarf, the one you stitched too big. She never seems to mind. You slip outside. The monastery is waking too. Not with chaos, with purpose. Doors creak open. Steam drifts from the bathhouse chimney. Bread bakes. Tools clink against stone. Even the birds seem to have resumed their business. You cross the courtyard and find Thomas by the northern wall, talking to a woman who arrived 2 nights ago. She's carrying bundles of cured rabbit. Her face is weathered, but her eyes gleam. 3 more traps working, she says. 2 broken. Will repair. Thomas thanks her. She nods once, then leaves. No fuss, no ceremony, just function. You realize people have found their roles. The rope guild is still out there, but you're not bracing anymore. You're building. A greenhouse is underway. A kiln, a loom. And Selma wants to try growing leeks in old barrels. Someone else is collecting bees. You look around and it hits you. This doesn't feel like a camp anymore. It feels like a village. A real one. That's your historical fact. After the Black Death, many survivors formed brand new communities from scratch. Abandoned land was repurposed. Feudal systems were weakened. People suddenly had choices. Power shifted, quietly, steadily, toward the ones who knew how to endure. In the library you find Leontius rearranging shelves. Rewriting the records, he says. We've got 6 conflicting entries for a single herb. You smirk. Is it poisonous or curative? He shrugs. Depends on the dose. That night, there's a gathering by the fire. Not a meeting, a celebration. Someone roasts apples. Someone else plays a melody on a pipe they carved from elderwood. Even the baby claps, offbeat, joyously. You let yourself laugh. Out loud. A real one. It surprises you. The last time you laughed like this, the world hadn't ended yet. But maybe it didn't. And Selma finds you later. Hands you a bundle. Inside, parchment, ink, a new journal, bound in softened leather. For the next story, she says, yours. I already wrote mine. No, she says softly. You wrote how it started. That night, after the fires die and the stars return, you write again. You write not as a messenger, not as a scout, but as a witness to what came after, to the quiet moments no one bothers recording, the way people laugh again, the way children trace patterns in the dust, the way silence now means safety, not suspense. You sketch the gate, the baby's crooked teeth, a pile of bread with one suspicious bite taken out of every piece. You know who did it? She's 2. She has opinions. Your quirky tidbit. In some monastic orders, scribes were allowed to doodle in the margins. Tiny rabbits fighting knights. Dragons curled around letters. A monk arguing with a snail. It was their way of saying, we were here, and even we needed to smile. You do that now. Draw a stick figure with wild hair holding a crossbow and shouting something unintelligible at a sheep. You label it. Hero, probably. Thomas reads over your shoulder. Says, add a scar, give it depth. The next day, a scout returns with word. The rope guild has split. Something fractured them. A power struggle, a sickness. No one knows. But they're not whole anymore. You sit with that knowledge for a long time. Because it doesn't mean the threat is gone. It just means the threat is changing. Like everything else. Historians still argue whether the collapse of violent factions after plagues was due to fatigue, rebellion, or resource scarcity. But whatever the cause, it always left a vacuum. One that had to be filled with something better, or worse. You help plan a council, not just for the monastery, but for others. You send messages, quiet ones, carried by soft-footed scouts, written in ciphers. You ask, who wants to rebuild? Who remembers before? Who's ready for after? The answers trickle back slowly. Names, numbers, stories, hope. You think of the archer again, of the way she never planned to be remembered, but will be. Because you remembered. Because you wrote it down. Because this time, the world doesn't get to forget. The morning comes wrapped in fog. You walk the perimeter alone. Your boots press into the earth, mud soft from last night's rain, the scent of wet stone and wood heavy in the air. The mist curls through the trees like breath, alive, watching. And for the first time in what feels like a century, you don't tense at every shift in the gray. You've learned the difference between danger and drama. The monastery stands quiet, but steady behind you. The gate holds. The people sleep. The baby snuffles into your shoulder, bundled in cloth that smells faintly of thyme and bread. She's getting heavier, more opinionated. Her new favorite word is no, and she uses it liberally, including when you're trying to stop her from chewing on arrowheads. You stop by the archer's bow, still hanging, still there, a silent guardian. You whisper, "We're okay," and it almost feels like a lie, but it isn't. It's just unbelievable. Back in the hall, Thomas prepares the parchment for what comes next. A council, a charter, a network of settlements bound not by bloodlines or kings or conquest, but by choice. You'll be there, not as a guest, as a voice, as someone who was bitten and didn't turn, as someone who kept writing. That's your historical fact. After the plague years, survivors often formed new leadership structures. Looser, more collaborative. In some cases, women took charge of land, orphaned children, or trade routes, because power flows to those who show up when others don't. You meet with Leontius in the library. He's drawing again. This time, not a map. A mural. Charcoal smudges across his hands as he sketches a line of people. Figures walking up a winding hill, torches in hand, smoke behind them. At the top, a monastery with light in every window. He shrugs. Thought we could put it in the chapel. You look closer. There you are, cloaked, carrying a child, looking forward. You say nothing. But later when he's gone, you trace your fingertip along the figure's jaw. You add a smudge of dirt to the chin. It feels right. In the scriptorium, Anselma gives you a new assignment. Write the code, she says. What code? For the council. Guidelines, promises, not laws, intentions. You blink. Me? You survived. You remember, that's enough. And maybe it is. You start with a single line. We do not inherit the fire. We pass it forward. Then you keep writing. That's your quirky tidbit. In some forgotten abbeys, Monks carved entire doctrines on the underside of tables because they believed the ones who would change the world weren't at the podium, but under it, listening, waiting, growing. You right there too. Just in case. The rope gill doesn't return. But you don't stop watching. You don't ever stop watching. And that's the point, isn't it? To stay ready, but not afraid. To stay human, but not soft. To build something real, even if it starts with broken pieces and torchlit fear and children who think arrowheads are chew toys. To remember not just the dead, but the strange. The whispering girl in the inn. The chained creature in the cage. The moaning in the trees. Historians still argue whether these were myths, metaphors, or mutations, if the world itself had shifted, or if it always had the capacity for horror, and we just noticed when everything else went quiet. You don't have the answer, but you were there. You kept the records. You held the line. You didn't turn. The baby pulls your sleeve and points. "Bird," she says. You look, there it is. Perched on the chapel spire, singing into the morning. Not a crow. Not an omen. Just a bird. A beginning. It's quieter now. Not just outside, but inside you. The kind of quiet that follows a long fight. Not the hush of dread, but the stillness of something placed carefully down after carrying it too long. The fire in the chapel hearth has burned low. The last coals give off a warm, steady breath, like the monastery itself is asleep. Dreaming, maybe, of simpler days or stranger ones. You lean back against the cool stone wall. The baby curls into your lap, thumb tucked into her cheek, hair wild from running through the herb garden. She smells like mint and ash and something faintly sweet, like new bread or old honey. You don't need to speak, not now. Everything important has already been said, or written, or lived. Outside, the sky softens into dusk. Lavender clouds stretching long across the mountain ridge. The kind of sky that lingers, refusing to fade completely, like even the sun wants to stay a few minutes longer. You listen to the slow rhythm of footfalls on stone. Thomas, Leontius, others, still doing the small work. The work that makes morning possible. You let the sounds fade behind your breathing. Let your shoulders settle. Let your fingers unclench. You did what you had to. And it mattered. The wind rattles gently through the shutters. Not a threat, just a reminder that the world is still out there, wild and wide and whispering. But tonight, it can wait. Tonight is for the firelight, for the hush, for the knowing. Tonight is for remembering that even the strangest stories, yes, even the ones with zombies and ropes and bells that ring at the wrong hour, can end with something gentle, something safe. You trace one last line in the dust with your finger. Not a word, just a curve. A spiral, like a rope uncoiling, like a path looping back, like the shape of a story when it finds its way home. Sleep comes for you slowly, kindly, like a familiar hand resting on your shoulder. And as your eyes close, you smile, not because it's over, but because it's beginning again. Somewhere, someone will need the story, and when they do, they'll find your pages, they'll find your steps, they'll find you still here, still standing, still writing,